Welcome, Yamhill County. I'm your host, Howie Harkema, for Speaking Frankly, and our tagline is, and how we doing? Well, today we're doing great, and we have a wonderful, wonderful guest with us, Beth Wytoski, who's running for Board of Commissioners in Yamhill County. And welcome, Beth Wytoski.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today, Howie.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. So many viewers have so many questions, and I hope that we can go through them, some of the questions they might have, and at least give them an idea of what you are all about. So we'll start with the very first question, which is, Beth, what made you decide to run for this county commissioner seat?
Sure. Thank you for that question. That tends to be like the opening question for most discussions. Why are you doing this? What do you have planned? I have a few reasons for doing this. I want to, I guess, finish with the most important and pressing one. So I'm going to skip it for now and go to, I really look at where we are right now, and I see that we have an unprecedented opportunity to pursue infrastructure dollars. That's a really important part of why I'm running right now. I've got experience making connections with congressional staffers and other representation who can help us get those dollars. I have contacts around the state with several agencies who have been really cooperative previously in developing grant applications and figuring out what priorities and what projects are most fundable so that we can really get some shovels in the ground and see some improvements around Yamhill County. So one of the reasons I wanted to run right now is that those infrastructure dollars are not going to continue to come. And Yamhill County has already missed, or will by the end of next week, missed 2 deadlines on some asks that I really feel like we should be pursuing. And I really want to see that shift. I really want to see Yamhill County willing to make some changes, make some investments so that our community is better functioning. It's better for tourists. It's better for living here and working here and playing here and all of those things that make people generally proud of their community. Another reason I chose to run is probably a little bit more sensitive, but it's related to county staffing. I've seen that there have been concerns, that there's been turnover, that there's been a lot of community conversation about how county staff are treated and beyond things like, their salary and their fringe benefits and their insurance levels, which are all important parts of how we all choose our places of employment, but more so in how they're valued in the workplace, how their professional opinions are received. And that's something I really, really hope that if I'm elected to the commission, that I can strengthen so that we have a really strong and capable staff who feel empowered to do their jobs well, who feel that the commission will be on the same page in terms, especially of communication with the public, but at a base level, at least at where our priorities are, what projects are we pursuing, and how are we getting through these, these master plans that some exist, some should. But I really want to change the dynamic between the staff and the commission and in general, the function of the operational side of the county. I've got experience in that, especially as a mayor, a city councilor, but also with other roles with the Oregon Mayors Association and the League of Oregon Cities, where I've worked with a lot of professional staff. Also as chair of YCAP for several years and a board director before that. So I know that the dynamic between an elected body and appointed staff can be tough. There's a lot of potential holes that have to be navigated when the commission sets the vision, sets the goal, sets the policies, and then the staff really have to carry all of that out. But the staff are also on the front lines and they have advice and feedback. They can provide warnings that can really make the role of the commissioner and their decision making much more efficient. And so I really want to see more collaboration on that front.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, thank you. Also, in terms of collaboration, that'll segue me. I really want to see, and of course, I totally have a bias being a mayor for a long time, but I really want to see the county better collaborating with city leadership. The cities are very, very commonly right now working on plans for emergency management, growth, economic development, and all of us have infrastructure needs. And I really feel like the county could be playing a much more present role as a facilitator, as a convener, to make sure that especially small cities are getting their fair share. A lot of times the larger cities, they have paid staff who can do things like write grant applications, and contact congressional staff and get earmarked dollars and all these things. And it's much, much harder for small cities because we don't tend to have staff for that. So I'd really like to see the county have some operational capacity for that to help support cities. But even aside from the supports, I also want to see the cities be able to function as somewhat of an advisory group. We have, just like the staff seeing things on the front lines, mayors and city councilors, we also see things on the front lines. And when folks have complaints about government processes, they may not have the same level of accessibility to their county commissioners or certainly to county staff, but they can go to their counselors and they can go to their mayor. And so I really want to make sure that the county is hearing those people, and not just when they initiate the conversation, but also opening the door and inviting that conversation so that all of those counselors and mayors and staffers know that they do have contacts in the county commission office that can facilitate and convene. So I'm not necessarily talking about hiring additional staff. It's not a government expansion, it's a collaboration. But we need to, it's not even we should, we need to be working with the cities that make up Yamhill County when looking at county plans. And right now, a lot of times those folks are, quite frankly, overlooked. And sometimes cities even go through really lengthy, in-depth projects. They can have months and months of community meetings, of town halls. They can hire attorneys and consultants and go through massive processes just to have the county at the end say, we don't like how this was. So I think if there's a collaboration and an open door much earlier in that process, then cities with very limited resources, but especially limited staffing, aren't going to go through a process just to have it not go through at the end when something gets to that county commission. Another reason I'm running, I'm sorry, there's probably too many reasons. I've got a long list, but another reason, is my role as an educator. Again, part of what I see the commission being able to do is playing a facilitation role to support schools, mostly in the area of workforce development. So I'd like to see the county talking and visiting our schools now that we can have visits. But really looking at what employment is going to look like in Yamhill County in 5 years and in 10 years, and making sure, are we training our students to work those jobs? Are we training them to go into the careers that are really needed, especially in our area? Because of course, a lot of our folks, especially people who've lived here a long time, we want our kids to stick around. We want them to live somewhere in the county. And that means that we have to provide for them opportunities to be successful, good education, good job opportunities after that, higher education for those pursuing college. But we also need to get to the trades. So we need to be supporting CTE programs and school to work programs. And I think that we can be building public-private partnerships, and bringing those employers honestly right into the classroom so that they can talk to kids about what they offer in their industry, and really broadening what our kids know is available for those options. And then the last reasons that I want to mention, one is that I just feel prepared for this role. I've been in public office for a long time. I've spent most of my adult life as an elected official on city council, 8 years as mayor. I was the 2021 president of the Oregon Mayors Association, where during the pandemic, an extraordinarily divisive time for our state, I was representing the interests of, everyone from the mayor of Hillsborough to the mayor of Sandy and the mayor of Central Point and the mayor of Newport, Oregon. And, figuring out where that common ground was, and where we had shared interests, and shared goals and shared values, so that I could communicate that to the state as a liaison. And all of those roles have really prepared me, I think, to build the bridges that we need to see in Yamhill County. to get us back to focusing on our operations and our infrastructure and our development and our public safety and our health and human services and all the critical services that Yamhill County covers, and less focused on the announcements of Salem, because what we need from our commission is really to work on Yamhill County.
Right.
And I really feel like my experience has well equipped me to be able to mediate things and bring together those shared values found on the common ground. So all of that was super long. Thank you for your patience, but that's really, those are the reasons I'm running. But I do want to get to the number one reason I'm running is my kids. I have 3 young children. We have done, last summer, we decided to do a parks tour and go visit Yamhill County facilities. Every week we visited different places and found lots of places that were in disrepair. I want my kids, like lots of people in Yamhill County, to be proud to call this their home. And regardless of what they do or where they go in their adulthoods, I want them to be proud of where they came from. And I think that we have some work to do in that regard. And our children are watching, and I want to model good behavior, and I want to create, a thriving economy. And I want to support our incredible history and preservation of our farms and our buildings. And I hope my children, who are my family's 5th generation here, will see why we've stayed so long. And that's my number one reason for running, is I just want this to be a home they're proud of.
Sure. Your extensive background really, really has prepared you for this seat. Let's talk about, let's see here, negotiations, union mediation, collaboration, and conflict resolution, and how it will assist you as a county commissioner.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start by going back actually a lot further. Kathy Beckwith, a local Yamhill County resident who has created all sorts of incredible programs, is now a published author, has traveled the world, and is incredibly positive about these exact skills. She started in Dayton grade school conflict management and mediation programs when I was an elementary student, and I was in her very, very first class of trained mediators, something that I kept up with later. And something that I literally think about these 3rd grade workbooks occasionally when I'm having these conversations. And I think, the same exact skills that we need to teach children, we need to teach adults, and we need to model. And they're very, very relevant for leadership. And there are things like, validating the experience of other folks. If somebody comes to you with an experience and says, this is how I've suffered, this is how I've struggled, this is what was difficult in my life. The first step is to understand that is how they suffered, and that is how they struggled, and that is what they've experienced in their lives. And because you've had a different experience does not mean that their experience didn't happen. And so I think, some skills that I've been able to develop, some of that is in that validation. And I know that people have experiences that I don't understand, that I haven't seen, some of which that even seem almost unbelievable to me, but it doesn't make their experience any less true. And something I know as an educator, I'm a trauma-informed educator, and I know that people's experiences shape, so much about your conduct and your emotions and your reactions, even what kind of job fields that you go into, but it can also affect your personal health, your psychological health, mental health, emotional health, social health, because trauma has such a deep effect. And so I think, when we talk about union negotiations, we're not necessarily talking about, let's look at these, what the history of trauma is. We're talking about, much more surface things. But A lot of things when we get down to it, really, why are people fighting for this? Well, it's because this other thing was under attack. And I think being able to look through that trauma-informed lens really helps. It helps create empathy. It makes you a better listener. It makes you a better mediator and a conflict manager. And fortunately, I've had the privilege of having lots of training and lots of experience in those areas. Additionally, getting to like the contract negotiations and that kind of thing, I've done several contract negotiations for the city of Dayton, from land purchases to intergovernmental agreements, to professional services agreements. We have had a few city managers in the time that I've been in office. And so even when we've been between city managers, I've held some contract authority or an executive authority for short periods while we were hiring staff. I've done all of the contract negotiations for our executive officers. I've held a similar responsibility for YCAP, talking about all of the details of those contracts. So it's something that I'm familiar with in terms of staffing contracts.
Sure.
In terms of union negotiations, I'm a member of a union. I'm a member of the OEA and the DEA, and so I'm very, very well versed in what tends to be focal points for union negotiations. I know how to process grievances. I know how stewardship works. And most importantly, really, I understand what happens when workers aren't being appropriately valued.
Sure.
And I know the consequence of that turnover. So I really feel like I can apply my experience with the conflict management, the mediation, and these various leadership things to my role as a commissioner to ensure that we are able to build up that stability.
Let's talk about COVID and what it's done for to Dayton and Yamhill County and where we are now.
So where we are now is in a really tough situation. I think some of the things that COVID has done has really destroyed our business community. That's something that is just on the front of my mind all the time. In Dayton, our vacancy rate has changed significantly. We had a thriving downtown with several restaurants that were doing well, that people really enjoyed visiting, and almost all of them have shut down at this point in the last 2 years as a result of some component of COVID. So either closures or staff shortages or increase in labor costs or increase in supply costs, increase in shipping costs. So there's been so many effects. It's not just the impact of disease. It's all these other economic impacts. And so Dayton's been hit really, really hard. Some things that we did really early on, though, when we got our CARES money, we put all of it immediately back into our businesses, into economic development. We did similar when we got our second allocation of federal dollars. So we developed an urban program, which was utility rebates for people who were shopping in our local businesses, including those that were closed and doing online sales or porch drops or things like that. So if people turned in receipts, they ordered dinner to go, they turn in a receipt, we lowered their water bill. So it incentivized shopping downtown. Later, we created a Dayton Dollars program where we actually gave cash value vouchers to Dayton residents who'd been affected by COVID through either, job loss, increased childcare expense, so many things, change of transportation, having to buy technology to work from home. So if people had suffered a negative consequence of COVID, which really is everybody, we made them eligible for these Dayton Dollars, which were to be spent in Dayton businesses, again, to incentivize and directly subsidize our local businesses. And we actually reimbursed those at a higher rate. So if somebody had a voucher for $40 that they spent in a Dayton restaurant, we reimbursed them $60. So they actually got 150% of that voucher amount, again, because we were trying really hard to just feed those dollars immediately back to our businesses to try to keep them afloat.
So important.
Yep. Unfortunately, here we sit with some vacant buildings and businesses that we tried really hard to keep afloat. We are hoping some of them are coming back this summer. I know there's some leases being explored, and we're hoping to get our downtown rebuilt. But Dayton is not unique in that, the same things have been seen around Yamhill County, around the state, around the country, really. So COVID's been hard, but it's been really hard on that economic front. I think the other place that COVID's been really, really hard is in the social front. Our socio-political divide has never looked the way it does right now, where we just have these chasms of space between different ideologies. Unfortunately, I think that the rhetoric has shifted from I disagree with this other group of people to the other group of people is like they're the bad guys. And I think any political discussion or discourse where you are framing it to have good guys and bad guys is really unhealthy. There aren't a bunch of bad guys, I don't believe. Some of the other mayors sometimes tease me when I say things like that. They say that's my education bias background, that some people actually you know that sometimes that's not true. But I think most people who step up into leadership, they want to improve their communities. They're there to serve people, they're there to help people, and they're there to make things better. But maybe their vision of better looks different than other people's vision of better. It doesn't make them the bad guy. It just means you just don't have that part in common. And I think COVID has really amplified those differences. And unfortunately, because there's been so much so much state legislation, so many orders, so much change, that it's been so tough on people that it really has pushed people actually to a trauma point.
Yes.
And I do see things that I see in my students, especially, but in a high school classroom, I see the trauma of COVID all the time. I see it when, I can't keep kids off their phones because they've been so accustomed to being dependent on technology for social interaction and entertainment for the last 2 years. Attendance is a huge, huge challenge because, kids were attending school from home. And so now they don't really want to have to come in all the time. Trying to engage kids in school spirit activities is a huge challenge. Because there's so much disconnect, or because things don't seem don't seem normal anymore. Things that were traditional, now they say, who decided to do this new thing? And it's something we actually did for 85 years before 2020. So, COVID's created a lot of hurt. Unfortunately, I think it's going to take some time to recover from that, as with any other trauma. And we do have people, we have long haulers who have medical trauma. We have people who are grieving from losing people to COVID. And then we have all of the divisiveness about how it should have been dealt with. What should and shouldn't we have legislated from a state perspective? What should cities have done to either accept those rules or push back? And I think, one challenge during COVID has been that there's been a lot of conversations, hundreds of, and probably even thousands of conversations that people didn't see. And that's been a hard thing. When things went online, it increased accessibility to some extent, but the awareness of that accessibility wasn't really there. And so, in my own community, I have lots of people who were really upset that the city didn't push back on park closures enough, that we didn't push back on business closures enough, but they didn't actually see the dozens of conversations that we had with state agencies, with OHA, with county leadership, with state leadership. They didn't see that the governor called occasionally to check to see what was going on. And I had an opportunity to have those, a really intimate conversation to express concern, especially for these business closures. And also for a lot of major impacts on schools. So COVID shielded those by making them online, and really reduced the awareness of those conversations as well. So I think, we're in a hole, and we're going to have to dig out of that. And so I think we do need leadership who have skills with mediation and conflict resolution, in order to bring us out of that hole together.
We have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to jump questions here and ask you one. Could you talk about your ideas for job growth in Yamhill County by way of the city mayors, city councils, networking and joint efforts, collaborations to accomplish job growth?
I mean, I think that job growth, that job growth in the county really is going to have to start in our schools. I think that, we do need a collaborative of all of those folks, like you mentioned, in order to make sure that that opportunity is available everywhere in the county and not just in our population centers.
Right.
I think that's where collaborations of mayors and counselors and managers and other county staff really come into play. So we can support things that exist now and then develop things where there's a shortcoming. So for example, I know Willamina has some really great advancements in automotive and in welding and some CTE development, and Sheridan is developing and improving on some special access for CTE. In Dayton, nobody does ag like Dayton does. So we have lots of opportunity for kids to train on horticulture, greenhouse, and they get sales practice. They get so much experience that they can take in agribusiness out in the county. So
Sure.
I think we need to look at what we're doing really well, kind of get an inventory, and then really talk about all the industries where they don't have enough applicants,
Right.
and figure out how to fill those. And I think that starts with collaborating with our schools.
I want to ask you a question that kind of feeds into that. What do you think about jobs that are not high tech, and maybe apprenticeship programs to bring back what we've outsourced across America to the world, such as manufacturing, welding, machining, et cetera, et cetera. Don't you think that we should come back to the United States to do our manufacturing so that we don't fall into that realm of outsource and can't get the items?
Absolutely. Manufacturing independence is really important. And I think that a lot of that can be built through county and municipal collaborations, especially when we talk about those plans for growth. One of the barriers for that kind of an economy in Yamhill County is land use.
Right.
It's our UGs. And so we really, again, need to see when cities put effort into figuring out how to grow in the most responsible way to allow for commercial development, industrial development, and the very, very important residential development to deal with our housing shortages. The county can be facilitating those conversations and be collaborating in that so that we can develop not just any jobs, not just customer service jobs, not just tourism-based jobs, but those family wage jobs that come from trades and high skilled manufacturing. But we have to have places where we can actually do that kind of business.
I agree. So I'm going to bring up your website and your Facebook page and talk about how people can assist you. Do you have any upcoming meet and greets?
So I have a few private events coming up in the next couple of weeks, but I also have the Chehalis Chamber one. That's a candidate forum. That's on Wednesday evening and is open to the public. I had another one scheduled for Thursday with the Republican women, but that one unfortunately was canceled. And I think I have 2 or 3 events the following week, but they are mostly private events hosted by business owners and industry folks who are having me out.
Sure.
But I'm definitely open to that. So if there are listeners who are interested in having conversation, please know I'm super open to coming out, visiting your businesses, your properties, your homes, and having conversations about my vision and plans or experience, so that I can have more opportunities to do those meet and greets.
This is Beth's website, bethwytoski.com. And also her Facebook page, Beth Wytoski for Yamhill County Commissioner. You can go out there, you can send her an email. There's a phone number There's also information more about Beth and what she's done in Yamhill County and what she's hoping to do in the future. Beth, thank you so much for being on today. I know that this information will go out and the viewers will see it and really come to a decision with 4 of you all running for the same office. It makes it a little bit tough, but this has been a greatly enhanced version of what you're all about. So thank you so much for being on today, Beth.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, viewers, thank you so much for watching today. Again, check out her Beth's website and Facebook page. If you want to get involved and be a volunteer for door knocking or any phone banking or putting up signs, etc., etc., I know she would love to have your help. So get involved. Thank you, Yamhill County. See you next time. Bye, Beth.
Bye. Thank you.
You're so welcome.